Hello, my name is Deborah Richards and I'm a music journalist and broadcaster based in the UK. You're listening to the podcast Rebel Spirits, offering a unique insight into the innovative and progressive talents of Polish jazz. Season 2 interviews the talented mavericks that have been emerging over the last 20 years, and today on the show is Joanna Duda. To describe Joanna Duda as simply a pianist doesn't capture the extraordinary dimensions of the music she produces. Whether touching a broken keyboard, using the sound of a rewinding tape machine, or mixing in field recordings, her innate playfulness allows any instrument to blossom. You get a sense that one of her greatest strengths is to listen attentively to whatever she uses. Joanna is also an incredible editor, cutting and mixing with a bold and surprising artfulness. It was a friend of the family who played electric bass in the band Combi that first caught her attention, and before she could even string a sentence together, she would sit with a piece of wood pretending it was a bass. Like many of the rebel spirits, she is classically trained and has been influenced by both Baroque and minimalism. Part of her heritage is Chopin, of course, but it's also her parents' vinyl collection, which included plenty of funk and jazz rock, and there is often a groove that emerges in her work. Be it leading the duo J=J, which is when she first came to my attention, or her current trio with Michal Brindle and Max Mucha on drums and bass, or playing solo. There is an essence which is clearly Duda. Finding her flow with collaborators is always uppermost, and she found that recently with French horn player Maurice Kilfuis from the Netherlands. Their project Wake the Dead is for electronics, improvisation and a Baroque ensemble, and premieres in October. Alongside her love of the communication between musicians, she has begun to appreciate a form of creativity that requires her to dig into herself, as opposed to reacting to what is coming at her from the outside. Reading, travel, and connecting to nature are part of her current evolution, and in this interview, she eloquently describes the ideas that inform her process. On a final note, one of the first times I met Joanna was in London, and I was a little concerned as to whether she would find the cafe I had suggested that we meet at. Not only did she find it, but she arrived on rollerblades. Joanna's joy of life permeates all that she does. Coming up on Rebel Spirits.
I'm Joanna Duda and I'm a pianist, composer, producer. I play different instruments. I play piano. I'm doing some weird stuff on computer and on synthesizers. And also, I am a cat lover. I really love cats, and I've got a cat which has got 3 legs, but she's very nice. What else? And yes, and my band is Joanna Duda Trio. I'm in a beautiful place. It's a small town, Gera in Italy. It's by the Como Lake. I've got most necessary stuff with me, lots of gear and a little bit of clothes. I always like traveling, and somehow going for the concert tours was something like this to me. But after a while I realized that going for a tour, it's not the same as you stay in one place for a longer time, so you can really get to know the place and, you know, take a little bit out of the culture and meet the people and really, you know, just take inside you something from this place. In 2019, I played with my band at the Jazz Connective Festival in Helsinki. It was my first visit in Finland since I was a child, because when I was really small, my dad was working in Finland on contracts, and my mom was taking me there. And referring to the communistic times in Poland then, it was a huge shock for me when we went to Finland. And I've remembered this amazing, beautiful country. And actually, this visit in Finland was first since then. And it was funny for me to go there. And when I went to a shop, like a supermarket, I could feel exactly the same smell that I felt when I was 3 years old. But back to the subject, we played on Jazz Connective, and after the gig, I was invited to spend few days in Vanta on a residency, artistic residency. It was in the middle of some forests and fields, and it was an apartment with a living room with a grand piano, and I was just staying there alone for these 3 or 4 days. And I was just spending time there with myself and the piano and my gear. The time that I'm spending by myself is very important for me. So nobody is like talking to me, nobody is disturbing me. So I can focus really on my thoughts and also on the surroundings. So I remember I was walking around a bit. It was November, so it was already kind of cold. There was some water on the way and it turned into ice, and I really like to walk on it. And I think I even got some films from this period because I was making some little filming with my phone. It's just some things which are happening and the peace of mind which is coming to me, and this is generating in me this perfect environment for me to compose rather than a direct inspiration, if you know what I'm saying. In that period, I was just using the piano. I remember it was looking very ugly. It was having this very ugly type of brownish color. And the sound of it wasn't the way I like the sound of the piano. So I just put some duct tape on the strings. So it was a little bit less loud because it was very freaking loud. So I put the duct tape, and at this moment it was having this very short release. The sound was like more like a clavicembalo than like a piano. Well, I was just starting to playing something. It was something that actually my hands were dictating me, and it sounded nice, so I decided to record it. There is this theory of the brain evolution that because the brain was developing, humans could start using tools and they were developing their skills of their hands. And there is this completely opposite point of view, which is close to my mind, that it was in opposite. It was first we were having this amazing abilities with our hands, and thanks to playing with our hands, our brain could evolve. So sometimes my hands, I feel that they are like dictating me. I mean, I'm no longer thinking, I'm no longer focusing on anything in particular. I'm having just this very physical feeling of pleasure with touching the keyboard and playing something, and I'm not judging it anymore. And then my hands, they are just playing something, and sometimes it's the biggest inspiration because they are very skilled. It's not done by intellectual work. Much more comes from this fun that you are having sitting by the instrument than like thinking, oh my God, I'm going to compose now this or that. No, it doesn't work like this. Well, it's like I'm composing like this. I'm just recording my improvisations and then turning them into complete compositions. I think all of the work I've done is based on this kind of work. It's never like some intellectual thing which is coming suddenly. It always comes Like when I go into, well, I don't know, maybe it's a kind of trance or a meditation, but I'm just finding something interesting and then I'm recording, and this is my starting point, and then I'm developing it further. I just did this arpeggio, I've recorded it, and that's all. 2 or 3 months later, I went back to what I've recorded in Vanta, and I started to really dig in it. Okay, so I was digging and digging and playing and playing and digging. I was just playing and repeating what I was finding in Vanta, and I was playing and improvising with it, and I've decided to leave the arpeggios for the most of the piece because it's just, I like it. I just like it. I like how it sounds, and I haven't heard it before anywhere also, so I like it. After the part B comes the double bass solo, and the end of the solo is a unison between me and the double bass. When we are ending the double bass solo with this coda that we play unison, there is some space. I wanted to include the electronic part there because all the time in this piece I'm playing the arpeggio, so I'm too busy to do anything else. My idea was to make a remix of the theme that is appearing on the beginning. And I've put some part of the theme into OP1 synthesizer. And I started to cut it and to experiment with it to create some kind of strange layer, which is not in a tonality anymore, which I can manipulate with, which I can change the tune and the tempo and add some LFO. I am using more textures than thinking in a bass, drums, chords / piano way. So the solos, they are not solo in the way that you would expect. It's just a part which is constructed in a particular way. So it's just maybe at some point the samples that I'm doing, that I'm playing on OP1 during my solo, they are the leading part, and Michał and Max are joining with something which is referring in a direct way to the thing that I'm playing, and they're trying to sink inside the texture I've done already. And sometimes we are, I don't know, looping some shorter excerpts and we are staying on it. Well, during the live performance, it's much more interesting, I guess, than on a recording. My first experimenting with electronics started when I got my first MacBook. It was the white MacBook, and it was maybe 2009. Yes, I think it was 2009, and my goal was to make some dubsteps then. So in 2013, I've started to collaborate with Amareya Theater. Actually, with theater, I started to develop a way that I'm not just putting some sample or recording things on a track. So I've started to construct drum racks, some kind of instruments, which is based on 16 pads, and under every pad I was having some different sample. and I started to experiment with this. So then I started to really dig into what Ableton can do with push, and I started to make lots of samples and use lots of things, and out of it went something which was very organic and more free in a rhythm, but still in a pulse somehow, because I was looking for something which is a pulse, which has got a pulse, which is not just some abstract texture without a context. So I've started to develop this kind of repetitive things which weren't really inside any kind of tempo, but they gave the tempo by themselves. It was a great experience for me to find something that I was like having in my mind since a long time, but it was leading me to this moment so I could really develop it. Back to Grasshopper. After some kind of a chaos, we go back to the theme. Well, the title, it's a bit taken from a children movie, like, Dobranocka. Yeah, other countries, they didn't have Dobranocka. So in Poland, the movie for the children, for the good night. I would explain it like this. Okay, so we will have the good night fairy tale, and it is bringing me to some kind of joy that I was having when I was a kid. And it's kind of, I guess, autobiographic, because when I'm in good mood, I'm a little bit like this grasshopper jumping from one blade of grass to another. Maybe it's a track about my good mood. My name is Joanna Duda, and this is one of my favorite compositions, Grasshopper.
This episode of Rebel Spirits was hosted by me, Deborah Richards, and produced by Monika Proba, Wojciech Oleksiak, and Magdalena Stampien. The podcast was brought to you by the Adam Mickiewicz Institute. If you'd like to listen to more music from today's featured artist, please see the show notes for this episode or go to culture.pl/Rebel Spirits. Please do subscribe to Rebel Spirits wherever you get your podcasts, and you can promote the show by sharing it. It's been such a pleasure, and I look forward to being with you again.